Redditors with real-life butterfly effect stories. What happened and what was the series of events and outcomes? Removed. My mother wore heels to work and slipped on the carpeted steps, resulting in a broken high heel and a broken leg. While she was home recovering, she somehow developed allergies that led to her needing an inhaler. The inhaler interfered with her birth control, and now I have a brother 13 years younger than me. Edit. Mother confirmed that it was the penicillin that she was prescribed. Nearly every single friend I have in college is because one day in my gen ed health class we had to pick a seat that would become our seat for the semester. When I came in, there weren't many seats left, and the people I sat next to ended up becoming my best friends and introduced me to all of my other friends in one way or another. My coworker has a big ego and thinks she knows best. We had a patient who received home visits. He had a medical condition that, if observed by a newcomer, might cause alarm, but we were very much informed about it and familiar with it. Instructions were that the condition was normal for him, not a concern in itself. One day the patient's wife and my coworker seemed to have some kind of power struggle, disagreement about his condition and treatment, and the coworker ended up calling an ambulance for his long-term unchanged condition that we were very familiar with. He was taken to hospital and while there caught an infection. This infection impacted his eating and he lost a lot of weight fast. His condition deteriorated over the next few months and he passed away. Honestly, it wasn't unexpected that he might pass, but it seems the specific scenario it ended up happening and stemmed from that unnecessary hospital visit. Grew up speaking Spanish. Say in high school my mom made me sign up for French. I didn't really care, but figured whatever, at least it's something new. I was a good kid. Bit of a cut-up with absolutely zero direction. In that class one met a girl and we sort of became friends. She got sick that year. Cancer. It was horrible. Visited her in the hospital. Got close to her family. Still am. She passed the following year. French, it turns out, was her favorite subject and her dream had been to study abroad. Her parents asked if we, her friends from that class, could do that for her. The years went on. I worked every summer, try to save up to study abroad. I noticed the others who had made the promise weren't making moves towards it, so I worked even harder. Finally went for a semester my third year. TBF, I always enjoyed French, but it wasn't a passion. Except that semester something kind of shifted. Came home, finished undergrad, then got into a master's in French. The whole time my friend's mom is excited, feeling like my friend is somehow vicariously living through me. I graduated from my master's and then moved back to France. Been here 3 years now, and May 1st was the 11th anniversary of my friend's death. As I type it out, it's not so outwardly obvious, but the entire time it's been so clear for me that she's been with me on this journey. Edit. Holy cow. Un grand merci for all the sweets, comments and awards. Y'all are really too kind. I'm alive because my aunt was born. And #X200B. My grandfather was conscripted into the Romanian army as a medic, and his unit was one of the many acting as a defensive barrier, covering the Nazi supply lines to Stalingrad. She was born, and he was called back to Bucharest from the front. While he was on leave, the Russians launched Operation Uranus, which decimated the Axis forces. He received word that his unit had been completely destroyed. He was never reassigned, and in 1948, my mother was born, and #X200B. And #X200B. I'm also alive because a bunch of Romanian cows got sick. My other grandfather was a pharmacist, back when that meant actually making medicines. He was also a Jew. The town he lived in was largely agrarian, and their cow herds came down with some illness that was killing them. Monsieur, he whipped something up that cured them. Monsieur, the townspeople were very grateful to him. Monsieur, so grateful that when the chief of police heard that the Nazis were coming to town to take inventory of who lived there, He came to my grandfather's house with some train tickets for him and his wife. They escaped the Nazis and never got caught. My father was born at the end of 1945 and #X200B. I guess this is the opposite of the butterfly effect. Really. Rather than one small action blowing up into a much more important chain of events, two hugely improbable events are eventually lead to my birth. And obviously my extended family as well. And now, I run ads on the internet. In high school, I didn't get into the AP history class wanted. Changed up my schedule, including a different gym class. Without everyone I knew, I was heartbroken. I really wanted to teach. And without an AP class senior year, I was screwed. Made a new friend in gym class, who was wearing a volunteer firefighter shirt. He had just joined, seemed interesting, and he invited me to check it out. They paid for me to get my EMT. Fell in love with healthcare. Fast forward quite a while, and I'm in her nursing, precept students and new nurses, teaching them how to survive in the ER. I also do public outreach and injury prevention, and I love it. Glad I missed out on my class. If my biological mom hadn't asked her parents to watch me for a couple hours and then left town, I wouldn't have had the incredible and privileged life that I was given through adoption. My younger half-brothers were raised by our biological mom and they're a total freaking mess. I'm more of a mom to them than their actual mom. And I would have been an absolute wreck also if she'd kept me. Instead, I was given an amazing private education, all the sports and musical adventures, and most important, a healthy, loving home with two parents who taught me that just because you share blood doesn't mean you love. And just because you didn't give birth to a child doesn't mean you can't be their parent. I was going out to grab pizza and a case of beer for me and my roommate, but he texted me that he had a stomach thing, so I walked to a restaurant and ordered dinner at the bar and met a girl there. And now we are married and have 2 kids because my roommate had diarrhea. The wife and I were having dinner in Hawaii one night on vacation. As we were getting up to leave, I noticed she hadn't finished her beer. I told her she should finish the beer since we paid some ridiculous price for it. Fast forward 30 seconds and we leave the restaurant and are walking the 3 blocks back to the hotel. About 50 feet in front of us as we're walking down the sidewalk on the left side of the road. A car comes flying out of a side street from the right and crosses through the street, hops the sidewalk in front of us, and smashes into a wall. If she didn't finish her beer, we would have been smoked by the car and most likely squished between the car and the wall. We always finish our beer now. I was walking to school and got distracted by a hedgehog that ran in a bush next to me. Then a big butt tree branch fell in front of me. Would have crushed me if I didn't get distracted by a spiky little mouse scurrying in the bushes. I gave him a dead cricket the next day. He took it and ran off. Godspeed, Spiky Mouse. My pregnant cousin usually takes the bus at around 5:10 p.m. after work. She was about to hop inside the bus, but she needed to pee really badly and the commute is about an hour long, so she decided to go to the restroom instead and just catch the next bus. That 5:10 bus ended up falling from a cliff. At the end of 6th grade, my class took a field trip on a whale watch. That night, I saw a commercial for a documentary TV series on whales. Ever since that day, I wanted to grow up and protect whales from being hunted. Today I work in the military specializing in marine preservation. So my then girlfriend, now wife, were planning on going away traveling for a very long time. Several years. The night before we left, I was just packing my things and at the last minute I decided to include some camera stuff. I had an SLR that I didn't really use too much. I very nearly didn't bring it because it was big and space was at a premium. This year while we were away, one of the things we did was work in a wildlife rehab center. At the time we were there, it was very quiet, very few baby kangaroos to look after. But we had to be ready as that could change in an instant. Like in one day 3 could come in and boom, it's your full-time job. I used this spare time to really get to grips with the camera and learn about photography in general. Now I'm a wildlife cameraman. Had I decided to leave the camera, I never would be doing what I'm doing, which is sitting in a freezing cold shed for hours at a time waiting for some animals to do something that they're not doing.